What's up, guys? This is Crushable. My name's Carl. Today we're going to be reviewing 1989 CGF, or Cheesy Gold Foil. Now, this sample was sent to me from a friend by the name of Hank. So, thank you very much, Hank. Now, CGF, or Cheesy Gold Foil, is a bottle of Wild Turkey from the 80s into the early 90s that was basically their 12-year expression. So I don't have a CGF up on the shelf yet because, to be honest with you, the first time I had it, it was in 92, and while it was very good, it did not floor me. And the first time I had an 8-year 101, it absolutely floored me. And so, you know, at a certain point when you're getting into these Dusties, we're talking about, $500 bottles versus $1,500 bottles. And so if it doesn't wow me, I'm not as interested. I mean, I know some of these guys are collectors. They're buying like different years, different vintages. But I'm looking for flavor. So if it doesn't floor me, I'm just not gonna continue down that path. And my problem with some of these older Dusties, like say the Old Granddad 114 or these different Wild Turkey 12 years, is you get into them and they taste more like a modern bourbon, whereas the younger ones taste more dusty. And so I know the older ones command the price premium, I think, because people are used to the way things are now, and modern bourbon culture just values that higher age statement, the more oakiness, the more complexity. But I think when we're talking about dusty bourbons in general, there's something to be said for the younger stuff. So I guess I'm saying all of this in preface to trying this, and of course it might just blow me away. Uh, but so far I haven't found those like older bourbons to like really wow me. Like they talk about, like, oh, maybe some of this 80s CGF was like, close to 20 years. And, who knows if that's true or not. Like, you know, Jimmy probably doesn't even know. Uh, Jimmy Russell. So it's very hard to say like what's true or not. But in any case, let's just get right into it. I say after I've rambled for 10 minutes. So the nose, it's very dark and very complex. I mean, right off the bat, there's a lot of raisin, there's a lot of toffee, there's a lot of coffee, there's some cinnamon, some nutmeg, maybe even some allspice, and maybe even some clove as well. It's reminding me a lot of the 114 Old Granddad. And then underneath that, there's some berries. So there's a blueberry component, there's a raspberry component. There's a little bit of vanilla. A little bit of strawberry. And I think that's about as much as we're going to get off that initial nose. So let's go in for a taste. Yeah, so it's just first impressions. It's a little bit thin. But it's velvety. Um, so that can be hard to put into words because it's like a lot of the times when you taste something like George T. Stagg or something with more proof, you get this thickness to it. But it doesn't coat the palate. If anything, it dries out the palate or it prickles the palate. Whereas here, it's definitely not drying or prickling the palate. It's almost drinking under proof, I would say, which most of the time would be a pro, but here it's almost a con because we're at 101 proof here. So a lot of enthusiasts are used to drinking more than this, right? And so when we're at 101 proof, I would like it to at least drink that much. Now I'm not looking for like ethanol in that per se, but I am looking for some kind of body to it. And here it's drinking 90 proof. So I mean, if you're after like smooth, complex, older sippers, then like that might be up your alley. But I'm looking for a little more oomph, I guess, and it's not there. I mean, even like comparing it, so let's say like Eagle Rare 17, right? Which, if the rumors are to be believed, then CGF is probably not a 12-year product. It's probably somewhere between 12 and 20, at least for 80s bottles of CGF. So that could be a good comparison. And, Eagle Rare 17 at 101 proof drinks a little bit more full-bodied, has a little more oomph to it. So what I will say though is that the finish lingers for a long time, and it's very thick and dark in comparison to the texture up front and the mouthfeel up front. So the finish is delivering what I would expect from CGF, whereas the kind of that first impression leaves a lot to be desired. Flavor profile wise, it's pretty much the same things as the nose. So there's a lot of raisin, toffee, coffee, and then the finish gets much more leathery. So I'd say like maybe some kind of dried fruit, it's like almost like dried blueberries or something. And then it goes into this more kind of leathery finish. Yeah, going back to the nose, the raisin is more prominent now, and it's getting more grape, even more grapey, like fresh grape, like grape soda or something, like a artificial grape, but not the the artificial grape I get off like Buffalo Trace is like grape Laffy Taffy. If you haven't had grape Laffy Taffy, go try grape Laffy Taffy. Because, like, the kind of a tangent, but I think that's what this channel is going to turn into more so, is like me telling stories uh, about different experiences, working at a whiskey bar and that kind of thing. So we had this bottle of Colonel Taylor 18-year marriage come through, and my boss, he tried it numerous times, and he said, it's got all these layers of flavor going on. It goes into this, goes into this, goes into this. I tried it. I said grape Laffy Taffy, and it ruined it for him. Now then all he could taste after that was grape Laffy Taffy, and so that's a note that I'm looking for in like Buffalo Trace now, though. So I would say I probably tried like 100 bottles of Eagle Rare, right, over the last decade, and my favorite bottles of Eagle Rare, they'll have grape Laffy Taffy on them. So I think we gravitate towards certain flavors that we like, and so with Buffalo Trace, I'm looking for that flavor on their bottles that are going to be more aged, right? So it's not a note you're going to see on Blanton's. So here, there is artificial grape. It's not grape Laffy Taffy. It's more of like grape soda, like grape Fanta. And then there's still toffee and caramel and coffee beneath that. And then baking spices beneath that. It's kind of like the different layers of flavor on the nose. So you kind of have your base notes and then your underlying flavors. So the base note definitely is grape, which is interesting. Because the first time I had this, the first time I had a CGF, it was a 92. And the 92 does not taste or smell anything like this 89. Oh, okay. So the second sip was way better on that. So the second sip, it was a little bit thicker, a little bit richer. It had a little bit more oomph, and it was more like blueberry, toffee, chocolate. It's almost like almond roca and blueberries up front. And then the finish is much more spicy. So the finish had more of that quintessential turkey funk and spice to it that I would expect to see on Dusty Turkey. But it's not lingering as long as I would expect. I would expect it to linger a little bit longer. But the amount of spice that it delivered on that second sip, was a lot better than the first. So I'm not mad. If I was going to put like a numerical score on it, it just went from like a 7 to a 8. Which is what I would put other like 80s, which is what I would put like 80s 101 8-year at as well. So not quite on the, my favorite's going to be, National Distillers and Stitzel Weller, and that's where you get into your 9s and 10s in my opinion. So, you know, we haven't really talked about score either that much on the channel. So I don't really want to have like a crazy like numerical scoring, but I probably will just get like a number off of my head. Not much new is coming up. I would say probably more tobacco than anything. You know what? You know what? It's actually it's reminding me more of Russell 15 uh, as I smell it more, which you know is a good thing, right? Russell 15 is an amazing bourbon. I would probably you know score it 9 out of 10, uh, but it's something that you can buy today for $400, whereas this is gonna cost you 1,300. So is this? I mean, is this worth 1,300? Right off the bat, off 2 sips, I'm gonna say no, right? Which I'm saying that after saying like an 80s 101 is worth $500 to me, right? So I'm saying I'm not saying 80s Wild Turkey is overrated, but I think CGF might be a little overrated compared to the 8-year 101, which the 8-year 101 is just insane. But, you know, that being said, I probably like bourbon more around that 12-year age than at that 17-year age. So if you're somebody who likes, you know, or even maybe 10 compared to 16 or 15, right? I might lean more 10 on Dusties. So, you know, if you're someone who's into Dusties, yeah, like blueberry tobacco now, which is interesting because that's what I get. That's what I was getting off the old granddad. Uh, but if you're somebody that's into, say, older Dusties, and by older I mean older age statement, you know, whiskeys, then you know this would be right up your alley. But to me, I'm like, you know, I'd probably rather have the 8-101, just to be honest. Yeah, so that sip was like blueberry, cinnamon, creme brulee. You got the you got that rich vanilla custard, uh, like a blueberry compote on top of that charred cane sugar, and then the finish gets so much more spicy. As soon as you swallow, it's like all this tobacco just hit your tongue at once, and it's not cheap tobacco. You know, we've talked about this before. It's not cheap tobacco. It's like an expensive cigar. It's like it's like the cigar's getting down there, and it's getting pretty spicy. That's the kind of sensation you get. And it's like a blueberry jam or a blueberry compote, and then it finishes into more like cinnamon, nutmeg, but it dissipates pretty quickly, and I think that's where I'd dock it the most points. I would say I want a little bit more body right up front, and then I want a slightly longer finish. I mean, keep in mind we're being very spoiled here, right? We're tasting a $1,300 bottle, and we're saying, "Oh, I wouldn't pay $1,300 for that," but you know, it tastes $700 good, right? A lot of people they wouldn't think it's, but I'm pretty particular about what bottles are going to go up here on the shelf. So I'm kind of comparing it to what I'm used to. I'm comparing it to other bottles on the shelf, and you know, I'm just I'm having a hard time because I picked up both of these Stitzel-Wellers for both of the Stitzel-Wellers and both of the National Distillers for less money each, not collectively. And I'm thinking I would take I would take these three over it, definitely. And those are all in the same price range. I would probably take this over the Old Taylor. But I would probably take two 80s bottles of 8101 over this. And even you're probably around 1,000 to 1,100. And then this is like 12 to 13. I would probably take the two. Yeah, that sip was the same as the last, like blueberry creme brulee, and then blueberry tobacco, like blueberry expensive cigar, and then cinnamon nutmeg finish. So I don't think it's, say, progressing as much as like that old Grandad did. If we're talking about like an older Dusty, I would probably have to recommend just going with one of those. So I think that's gonna do it for us, guys. Sorry if I sound like down on this one or something. It's just, I'm trying to keep it real with you guys because we review a lot of expensive whiskey around here because that's what I like to drink. And I'm a turkey fanboy. I mean, there's so much turkey here. There's so much turkey here. And people talk about this like it's the end all be all of turkey, and it's just not. Like it's lacking in so many ways. I mean, I would much rather have, say, a bottle of 80s 8-year 101 and a bottle of Russell 15 than have one bottle of CGF. And, I've only had 89 and 92. So, maybe an 88 or an 85 would sway my mind. But how much of that 85 is Old Boone juice, right? Like, that's probably not even turkey. So, it's hard to recommend, guys, especially at this price point. It's a fantastic whiskey. I just don't think it's a $1,200 whiskey. I think it's like a $700 whiskey. Now, if you're a collector and you're not, drinking it, comparing it the way that I do, then, you know, go for it. But, you know, most of us out there who drink it, we're looking for 88s. So, yeah, it just depends, guys. It's hard. I think the next step would be buying a split label, which is like mid 90s, and then we can kind of get a comparison going, because the 212s I have, it's a faux split and then a unisplit or pseudo split, whatever they call it. So I think that's a 99 and then a 2005 or so. Funny enough about the 2005 from Hank as well, so thank you, Hank. But in either case, you know, both of those, they don't quite compare to this. They're probably one step below, but they deliver a lot of the same experience for a fraction of the cost, which is why I have a hard time recommending this, even though it is better. So that's about going to do it, guys. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you on the next one.